Vote for America 2022. The New York Governor Primary Debate. Live from the Kodak Center in Rochester, New York. Tonight's moderator, Newsmax anchor Eric Bolling.
Good evening and welcome to the Newsmax debate between the four Republican candidates running for New York governor. This is the final debate before the state primary and the last chance to convince voters that they are the right person to be on the ballot for the midterm election in November. The primary is 1 week from today. Let's meet the candidates. Up first, Andrew Giuliani. Thank you. Congressman Lee Zeldin. Harry Wilson. And Rob Astorino. All right, the candidate's position on stage and order of closing remarks was determined by a random drawing held prior to tonight's events. Each candidate will be given equal time and an equal amount of questions about key issues facing voters today. Not all candidates will answer every question. The order of questions were determined by Newsmax. Answers will be limited to 1 minute or less, and we have a countdown clock to keep the candidates to time. 30-second rebuttals will be allowed if one candidate attacks another. This will be at the moderator's discretion. All candidates have agreed to the rules. And now we ask our very enthusiastic audience to be respectful and limit applause to the end of the debate. For background purposes, both Andrew Giuliani and Rob Astorino have served as paid contributors to Newsmax in the past. However, neither have any formal or informal role currently at Newsmax. All right, let's get started, folks. If you're ready, here we go. This is for all of you, all candidates. If New York were a separate country, by the way, some estimates would have it the 11th largest economy in the world with 20 million people and home to the nation's largest city. What makes each one of you qualified to lead such a complex and consequential state? You each have 30 seconds. Mr. Astorino, you will be first.
Well, Eric, thank you, and good to be with everybody here in Rochester. I'm qualified because I did it. In Westchester County, which is 3-1 Democrat, home of the Clintons and George Soros, this staunch conservative got elected twice, cut taxes, held the line on the budget for $1.8 billion, all straight 8 years. I also made sure that when the Democrats went crazy and they controlled the county board, I vetoed their legislation for spending or whatever chaos they tried to put on Westchester.
All right.
So I'm the only one here on this stage with executive experience.
All right. These guys will also see the 30-second clock. So, Mr. Giuliani, you're up next.
Well, first off, thank you very much, Eric, Newsmax, for putting this debate on. And I'd like to thank you. It is nice to be with you in person finally. You know, I'm very honored to have served the last 4 years of my time in the Trump White House, working on important issues like the Paycheck Protection Program. Eric, like you know very well, like the Opioid Task Force, and like making sure that 9/11's health fund got refunded the money that had been taken out of over the previous administrations. When I think about the work that I did with President Trump in the White House, that's the kind of change that we need in Albany, and I would bring that experience to Albany to change Albany.
All right, let's go. Next up is Congressman Lee Zeldin.
Life experience. I'm currently in my 20th year serving the United States Army. The life experience of raising identical girls born 14 and a half weeks early, weighing just 1.5 pounds. Serving the last 4 terms in the United States Congress. It's important to respect life, respect freedom, allow people to keep more of their money. Individual liberty. We see it with medical freedom. We see it with regards to preserving the Second Amendment. It is important to have a strong, principled structure and backbone, which is lacking, unfortunately, with a government thinks that they want to rule the people. No, the people want to be in charge of their own government.
Okay, Mr. Wilson. Sure.
So, Eric, as you know, I'm a businessman, not a politician. I've spent nearly 30 years, the highest levels of American business, fixing broken companies. I think that is exactly the skill set we need to fix the most broken state government in the country. In my turnaround plan, we will cut income taxes 20%. We will cut property taxes 20%. We will engage in regulatory reform to reduce the cost of living for families across the state. I'm the only person who's created jobs and built a business, and that's exactly what we'll do in a focus on economic development. I am from upstate New York. I understand the challenges of the upstate economy, and that experience of both business and having lived it through my entire life is exactly what we'll do to revive the state.
Okay. All right, there we go. And now, folks, this question is again for all of the candidates. The number one issue concerning all Americans today, inflation. The annual inflation rate is 8.6%. Rising gas prices cause all other costs, such as food, to rise. New York also has high taxes, high housing costs, and unfriendly business regulations that increase prices at a greater rate than other states. What would each of you do as governor to help New Yorkers battle inflation? And Mr. Wilson, you're up first.
Sure. So it is a huge issue, and we've forgotten all the lessons of the last 40 years because of the bad Biden policies that have enabled this 40-year record inflation. So what we can do at the state level is offset it by reducing taxes and the cost of living. So when you go through all of my pieces, property tax cut, income tax cut, cost of living, those will put up to $5,000 a year into the pockets of middle-class families. It is a total game changer, and that is how we offset bad Biden policies here in New York, making New York much more affordable.
Okay, Mr. Astorino?
Well, I did this. In Westchester, as I mentioned, we held the line on spending, which meant we had to cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of the budget to stay at $1.8 billion for all 8 years. And that allowed us to cut property taxes. We worked with all of our businesses, big and small, so they could prosper in Westchester County. And that's something we have to do here in New York. And unfortunately, we go back to the Cuomo years and the Hochul years now. This train has been out of control for so long. And unfortunately, it was people in the state Senate, in New York, in Albany, like Lee Zeldin, who were voting for the Cuomo budgets the entire time that got us to this point. Unfortunately, that train was put on that track, and it was kept by the conductor, Lee Zeldin, and Andrew Cuomo. And that's where we are today, where we are. $40 billion additional in the last 2 years in our budgets in New York. And that means we have the highest taxes. I will cut taxes, including the estate tax for our farmers and small businesses, corporate taxes, income taxes, and yes, I already did it. I cut property taxes in Westchester, and we'll do that in New York.
All right, Congressman Zeldin, you're up next.
We have to bring down spending. We have to cut taxes across the board. One of the ways that we can help revitalize local economies, to create jobs, to generate revenue, we should reverse the state's ban on the safe extraction of natural gas. It's important for the southern tier. It's important for other counties that want it. We have pipeline applications right now in Albany that are collecting dust, being delayed, denied, that instead should be getting approved. Right now, we have one-party rule. Kathy Hochul is going to get fired November 8th. I'm looking forward to removing her from this office. One-party rule. They want to next ban all gas hookups on new construction statewide. I care about the future of the state. I am all in on this rescue mission to save our state. Unfortunately, what you just heard was untrue from Mr. Astorino. One, I never once voted for Cuomo's proposed budget. And secondly, when Mr. Astorino was the county executive, he got run out. Because the deficit and debt went up, the cash reserves plummeted, the bond rating went down, and the sewer fund ended up owing tens of billions of dollars to the general fund. He forgot to mention all that out. He's actually lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices, and he's trying to get your vote once again.
So before I go to Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Astorino, do you want to respond? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think I do. To say that you didn't vote for the Cuomo budgets is
true.
It's incomprehensible.
But it's true.
Look it up, folks, because the executive, which I was, has to give the budget, and then the legislature votes on that budget, which he did. So every year he voted aye when Cuomo said, this is what you're going to do. The problem that we've been facing in New York is we've had the establishment, the status quo, the get-along, go-along crowd, like Lee Zeldin in Albany when he was in the state Senate majority, but every time he was a reliable vote for Andrew Cuomo.
There'll be plenty of time, to get further into this, guys.
15 seconds.
15 seconds to Lee.
Okay, so when they tried that last week, these guys ended up getting fact-checked by Politico. They did the research, and Politico found that out of 63 New York State senators, there were only 2 state senators who voted against Andrew Cuomo more than I did.
All right.
Out of 63 state senators, only 2 voted against him more than I did.
All right, let's bring it to Mr. Giuliani.
Okay, let's talk about the issues that are important to New Yorkers, like the fact, like you mentioned, inflation through the roof. Look, I have a baby girl my baby Grace, 6 months old, and I am concerned with the baby formula shortage. When I think about New York state budget at $220 billion, and I compare Florida's state budget as $98 billion, it's no reason why we lead the country in out-migration. We need to make sure that we work on day one to take the same type of regulatory action in the state of New York that President Donald Trump took in the United States of America. You guys remember when he said for every regulation he'd sign into law, he would cut 2? Well, that's what we're going to do in New York. By the way, when he walked out of the White House, that number was over 8-1, and that's why we saw record unemployment. That's what we're going to do in New York. We're going to absolutely make sure we tap into the Marcellus Shale and make sure we can actually make New York the best fracking state in the country again. And we are going to eliminate property taxes for New Yorkers over the age of 65 making $100,000 or less. We need to make sure that we reignite the flame that is New York.
All right. All righty, folks, for all you gentlemen up there, polls show that rising crime is a concern for many Americans. Local and state governments have passed laws to limit incarceration and diminish the ability of police to keep our streets safe. And this has led to a rise in crime. Cashless bail was passed by the Senate and Assembly of the state legislature. What would you do, each of you do, to lower crime, knowing that the repeal of cashless bail and other measures would be difficult to get passed in the legislature? And we will start with you, Mr. Giuliani.
Well, first and foremost, on day one, I go right to Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Carl Hastie and tell them very simply, full repeal of bail reform on my desk, or I'm not funding anything in our upcoming budget negotiation. Eric, we need to, frankly, end the war on cops, not just in this state, but in this country, to be perfectly honest. We are in Rochester right now, where last year they had the most murders ever in recorded history. And they now have a police oversight board in the state that is already filled with corruption. Unfortunately, we've been sending the wrong message to police. They will know, as your governor, there is nobody that will back the police to the degree that I will. On day one, we will work to make sure that we fire rogue district attorneys like Alvin Bragg, like any other Soros-funded district attorney across the state right here. And I will create a $5 billion state pot so that way any city, any municipality, any county that has had their resources taken or defunded can tap right into the state budget so that way we end the war on our police.
Congressman Zeldin.
On day one, Alvin Bragg is fired. It's the constitutional authority of the governor. It needs to get done the first day as soon as we get sworn in office. We need to repeal cashless bail. We need to reverse the discovery law changes. We need to get rid of less is more, which is releasing people early from prison. We have to get rid of the HALT Act. We should pass a law enforcement Bill of Rights, recognize their inherent right of self-defense, make sure they have all the tools and resources they need to do their jobs safely and effectively, make sure they're not unfairly targeted by investigations. We should overhaul the parole board. We should change it from a majority vote to a unanimous vote. We should allow victims to be able to provide testimony. We shouldn't be releasing cop killers and murderers from the parole board as easily as what we are seeing right now. On my website, zeldinfornewyork.com/secure our streets, we outline our top couple dozen or so proposals in order to secure our streets. I was raised in a law enforcement household, and I'm honored to have the endorsement of a whole host of different law enforcement organizations across this state, and I look forward to once again having Albany unapologetically backing the blue.
Yeah. Mr. Wilson.
Sure. Eric, this is a hugely important issue, and it's unacceptable that we have forgotten the lessons of the Giuliani era and the Bloomberg era and other cities across the state where we made massive improvements in crime. It is unacceptable for New Yorkers to live on unsafe streets. It's deeply personal for me. I have 2 cousins in law enforcement, and just 10 days ago, as I shared on the debate stage a couple debates ago, I had an extended family member killed by someone out on cashless bail. We need to think about victims, not criminals. That is what criminal justice is all about. It's what public safety is all about. I have a 14-page Making New York Safe crime plan on our website that goes through everything from repealing bail reform to fixing discovery standards and supporting our brave men and women in law enforcement who need the financial and human support that they need to do the job they do well. But what it all comes down to, you asked about how do you get it done. All of these bad policies were created by the Cuomo-Hochul budgets. We will undo them through the Cuomo-Hochul budgets, and we will not back down because it is that essential to get it done for the people of the state.
Okay. Mr. Astorino?
There was another murder in Rochester just today. And this, unfortunately, is across New York State and around the country because we are coddling criminals right now. The leftist agenda has handcuffed our police officers, defamed and defunded them, and unfortunately, they're letting the criminals run wild. I'm a gun owner, and I'm proudly a Second Amendment supporter. And it's interesting, if I have a concealed carry permit, which I do, and I take my gun by accident from, let's say, the Westchester border into the Bronx, I would be a felon overnight if caught. And yet, all of these criminals who are arrested with illegal possession of a gun, those charges are dropped. They're released. No cash bail obviously is a big mistake and needs to be repealed, and it will be. I will fire district attorneys like Alvin Bragg who ignore the law. They have to go. We saw that in San Francisco. Watch it happen in New York. I will remove him. But also things like stop, question, and frisk, which is constitutional. Things like that worked, like taking guns from criminals in those gun-free zones that don't work. We have to go after criminals, and I will, and stop this chaos in New York.
All right, well, this is for all candidates, folks. The U.S. has been rocked by recent mass shootings, both a school in Uvalde and a supermarket in Buffalo, less than 100 miles from right here. As governor, would you advocate for more gun control, and how would you harden schools and public places? Congressman Zeldin, you're up first.
Actually, New York's gun laws go too far as it is. We should repeal the unconstitutional SAFE Act. We should be changing the standard from may issue to shall issue. We need to make changes with regards to the red flag laws that right now in the state can target law-abiding citizens, as opposed to getting right to the heart of somebody like the Buffalo shooter who threatened to shoot up a school and still had access to a rifle to carry out that offense. I am honored to be the endorsed NRA candidate in this race. I'm an A-rated lifetime NRA member, endorsed by the president of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, endorsed by the president, the chairman of the board of SCOPE. This is important for all gun owners to be able to vote. It's not just your right to vote, is your duty to vote, is your obligation to vote, because right now in this state, you have people who are in charge who feel like your rights is something that Kathy Hochul can just give you and take away at her whim. That's not how this works. Public service is about serving the public, not being served by the public, and Kathy Hochul's called on us to be her apostles. We're not here to serve you, and unfortunately, the way it is right now, I say that we need to roll it back, not have new gun laws.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
You know, this whole debate, Eric, is a classic example of what's wrong with politics, because people are demonizing issues that have nothing to do with the core problems. The core problems are not law-abiding citizens. I started shooting in my backyard with my dad in Johnstown, New York when I was 8 years old. I'm a gun owner today. I am not the problem, and people who are the 99.9% of law-abiding citizens are not the problem. The problem is criminals, the mentally ill, and purveyors of hate like the monster who drove to Buffalo. That is who should we go after. And politicians in this state have failed on all three of those areas. If we did that, if we focused on criminals, crime we just talked about, and mental health, we've actually seen the number of psychiatric beds go down 15% over the last 3 years, despite spending $220 billion in the state budget. So our priorities are wrong, and as a result, we failed to deal with the problems of people contributing to the problem, as opposed to going after law-abiding citizens.
Mr. Astorino?
This is not what's called, this is criminal control. And we've lost all control of criminals in New York because they're being released because of these leftist policies. We have to get back, as I said, to what worked. But it's also, you have to be tough. And I was, as an executive, we had a police department that I had to run. We had to make sure that policies were in place that protected our police officers and gave them the tools that they need, and we did. But things that the leftists in New York City and Kathy Hochul are pushing are clearly driving up crime. So we've got to go into the zones where it is, give the police officers the tools that they've needed. And I've talked to NYPD commissioners and sheriffs and rank and file police officers. They feel like they get no support because they haven't by the left. But you know, when it's tough, you need a spine. And in Westchester, which I said is a deep blue county, the gun show was canceled by my predecessor, a Democrat. I brought the gun show back, and I also vetoed legislation by the Democrats which would have permanently banned it.
Okay.
Why did I do that? Because those with the Second Amendment rights, they're not the problem.
Okay.
The criminals are the problem.
Mr. Giuliani.
I believe in our United States Constitution as written. And when I think about the problems in Albany, the fact that we have a governor that immediately wants to go after our Second Amendment, and by the way, Eric, our First Amendment rights as well as the reaction to this. Look, the other candidates on the stage have alluded to this. We need to make sure that we fully fund our police. When we take a look at the Buffalo shooter, for example, this is a guy who said he was going to shoot up his school. The state police actually had this guy under custody, and they didn't have the resources necessary to actually hold him. There is something fundamentally wrong when I hear people in Albany, in Washington, D.C., and in New York City, frankly, that have been yelling from the top of their lungs to defund our police, yet now they think they have the answers on this. Crime is out of control in this state. We need to make sure that we bring back stop, question, and frisk. We need to make sure that we bring back broken windows policing, and not just institute it in New York City, but institute it all around the state of New York. If we do that, we will make New York the safest large state in the country again.
Okay. And now another question for all of you. Last week, Governor Hochul called pro-lifers Neanderthals. Now, Mr. Wilson, given that abortion is a priority for Republican voters, how do you square your pro-abortion position with Republicans? For the other candidates, what do you say to pro-abortion New York voters to convince them to vote for you? And again, I will start with you, Mr. Wilson.
Sure. So, look, I am pro-choice. I don't agree with Governor Hochul's comments. I think they're totally off base. It's okay. It's okay. We're not going to agree on everything, and I apologize for that. But I will always tell you exactly what I believe, even if we disagree, unlike some other folks. And let me explain why I am. I am a Greek Orthodox Christian. I have my personal views. My wife and I have our personal views. That's how we raised our 4 daughters. Okay? But I am a limited government conservative. And I believe that we should keep as government as limited as possible. I recognize many of my friends disagree with that. That's my position. And that will always be my position on every issue. I've been consistent about that for 30 years, ever since I evolved to that position. So that is how I look at it. I do believe the laws of this state go too far. I think it devalues life. I think the rhetoric for the governor is totally unacceptable. I think the notion of lighting up the Empire State Building is just wrong. But that does not mean that I don't believe that people should have, up to the point of viability, the right to make a decision on their own.
Mr. Giuliani.
Well, look, I believe in life, and I've said it clearly, and when I think about this, I think about my baby girl. I think about the first time that I saw her on the ultrasound machine. You know, we've been hearing from the left recently with regards to health mandates that my body, my choice is no longer acceptable. Yet, when we're talking about 2 souls from the moment of conception, now it's okay to do that? It shows the absolute hypocrisy. That's why we need to stand up and make sure we bring morality back to this state, my friends. And I will tell you, as governor, I will make sure we are doing everything that we possibly can, so that way we can defend New York's most vulnerable. When I think about this issue, and I think about where we've gotten to this, you know, I was just in Amherst, New York, just outside of Buffalo, where a Compass Care was bombed. And the thing that was amazing to me was not the destruction, not the evil, but was the amazing messages and Bible verses that were written on the side of there. That's what this debate is all about. It is about love versus evil, and we need to make sure that we are on the right side of history and protecting our most vulnerable New Yorkers.
Congressman Zeldin. Congressman, again, the question was, what do you say to pro-abortion New York voters to convince them to vote for you?
And I'm pro-life. I'm the candidate endorsed by the New York State Right to Life. And what I would say to people who might not agree with my pro-life position is I think that partial birth abortion that we see, the late-term abortion that's legalized in New York, should be rolled back. I think a lot of people who call themselves pro-choice would agree with me. I believe that non-doctors shouldn't be performing abortion. Right now it's legal. That's wrong. We should legalize parental consent. We should legalize informed consent. We should promote adoption more in this state. My daughters, they were born 14 and a half weeks early. They were less than 1.5 pounds. In the first 2 weeks of their lives, they had intestinal surgery, both of them, lung surgery. Michaela she had a septic shock, stroke. The left side of her brain, 1/3 of it was a hole. She went through a lot, and a lot of doctors, and they thought that she wasn't going to make it. But through the miracles of modern medicine, the power of prayer, their will to live, these girls are doing great. They're finishing 10th grade. They're turning 16. They're in honors classes, getting better grades than I did when I was their age. Thank God they had the ability to be born, to survive, and thrive. We need to respect and protect life.
Before we go to Mr. Astorino, can I give Mr. Wilson 15 seconds to respond to Congressman Zeldin, who said if you're pro-choice, you may agree with his policy. Your thoughts?
No, I do agree. We've actually talked about this before in that I think the laws of the state go too far. And, I talked about my personal view is the point of viability is the line of demarcation. Now, I've also said I'm not going to fight to change the laws. I'm focused on my turnaround plan for the state. I think a lot of the problems politicians do is they promise a lot of things to a lot of people and accomplish nothing. Okay. I will get my turnaround plan done, and that's what I'm focused on.
Mr. Astorino, the same question to you. How are you going to get pro-choice people to vote for you?
Well, First of all, my 3 kids are here today, and the 3 happiest days of my life were when they were born. And I think most people understand that what you see on a sonogram is a living human being. And we can't even get those real radical abortionists to agree when life begins or if it is, in fact, a child. We're celebrating in New York, as we mentioned, lighting up iconic buildings to celebrate allowing partial birth abortion, allowing a child to be killed the moment before birth if that's what the mother chooses. That's not where New Yorkers are. Even pro-choice New Yorkers say that's way too far. So yes, I think I'm going to talk about abortion and how we can reduce it in New York. We need to make sure that it is, we're putting money in prenatal care and for adoption and, pregnancy care centers. These things should be supported, so we tell people, you have choices. We're behind you if you want to have this child. We will help you do that. And I've won awards by Westchester Putnam Right to Life for my sanctity of life. And by the way,
all right, I
gotta
go. We went over.
I vetoed a clinic access bill where they would not allow people to peacefully protest.
This
in front
next
of abortion
question
clinics.
is for Congressman Zeldin and Mr. Wilson. We've seen the great migration from blue states over the past 10 years, with reports that 1.4 million people have left New York since 2010, leading the nation in out-migration. Many of those leaving are high earners who pay a large percentage of the state taxes. What would you both do to cut from the budget to lower taxes and increase affordability for New Yorkers? And Congressman Zeldin, you're first.
Well, we saw it last year when they created a multi-billion-dollar fund for people who aren't even legally in our country. We shouldn't have been funding multiple billion dollars for this excluded workers fund. We see money that can be saved in Medicaid with the way that conversion to long-term care was done in this state, the way that for-profit, non-for-profit rules in Medicaid are being abused. And there's people out there who will be watching this debate. We're talking about you. Yeah, individuals who are making 7 to 8 figures cheating the Medicaid system. I believe that there are billions of dollars to be saved just inside of Medicaid alone. Well, you look at where Florida now has millions more people in Florida than New York. It didn't used to be that way. Their budget's about half the size. And the trajectory of the tens of billions of dollars of added funding over the last few years, it's unsustainable. And we need to have long-term budgeting in this state, but we have to be able to afford as well to provide relief for all New Yorkers, whether you're a senior struggling to survive here, you're a young family, you can have your first kid in the basement of mom and dad's house or go buy your own home. But yes, even if you're a high earner, there are people who are deciding to flee because of the geniuses raising their taxes to the highest income tax rate in the entire country.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Sure, Eric. So the fact that we lead the nation in out-migration is a symptom of a broken state. Our highest taxes, crime rate, all that drives that out-migration, and it is a slow death spiral. When I talk about my tax cut of 20% for income and property taxes, the way we pay for that is I will cut at least $25 billion in spending from the state budget. Now, I want people to understand, one, how to do that and the specifics of that. I have spent my entire business career coming into fat, bloated, mismanaged companies that are in or near bankruptcy, just like New York State, and then working with those companies to right-size them, to focus on the things that really matter and invest resources there and to strip away everything else. And when we do that process in New York State, I think we're going to cut a lot more than $25 billion, but I always underpromise and overdeliver, and we will get that done. Specifically, I'll give you some examples. Governor Hochul has $8 billion in slush funds that she uses to reward political interest. They're in her budget. The legislature approved 8 of the 10 billion she proposed. All that goes to zero. Corporate welfare, same thing. The vast majority of that goes to zero. We will be able to cut that without hurting programs. In fact, we will be investing in making programs better. Massachusetts spends 50% less.
Gotta go. I want to keep
Talk
this
about
moving.
Massachusetts next.
All right, this is for Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Astorino. Medicare waste, fraud, and abuse in New York amounts to billions upon billions of tax dollars every year. No one fixes it. How do you go about doing that? It's a very tall order, tall task. Mr. Giuliani, you're first.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it actually, aside from K through 12 spending, which basically is to the teachers union, it is the #1 cost in our state budget. So the #2 cost in our $220 billion state budget. You know, I mentioned before seniors getting, that are 65 years and older, that are making less than $100,000, getting a property tax credit. I would love to see some of those property taxes actually get applied to Medicaid right there, because to be honest, when we look at where this has gone, it has been unaffordable. It's been one of the reasons why we've seen so many New Yorkers, as you mentioned before, continue to flee this state. We need to make sure that we're addressing our health care here, not through single-payer systems like the Democrats in the Assembly and in the state Senate have proposed and have actually signed into law, but is actually making sure that we're pushing back to make sure we're doing everything we can to be competitive from a health care perspective. We right now, unfortunately, have not been competitive in this state, whether it regards to health care or education. We need to make sure we bring competitiveness back to the state of New York.
Mr. Astorino?
Well, again, I had to do this in Westchester. We had a huge deficit. We cleaned that up, and we made sure everything was stable with regard to our finances. We have right now in our state, citizens are treated better. I'm sorry, non-citizens are treated better than citizens, and I'll tell you why. We have a $2 billion fund, $2 billion fund for those who are here illegally. And I've been the only one so far. You've heard these secret migrant flights from the southern border. They're coming up from El Paso into Westchester, into Stewart International Airport. They're put on buses. These are 18, 19, 20, and older illegal immigrants. They then get cash assistance in that $2 billion fund from New York. Those who are here and they're elderly, they get Medicaid from New York. That's not even allowed by the federal government, but New York picks up the tab. So we'll start with that by treating our own citizens with respect and cutting costs for our own citizens as opposed to those who are here illegally. And why I'm the only one sounding the alarm on this. This is a national security issue. This is a finance issue as well because it affects everybody and everywhere. I have no idea, but you're a member of Congress, Lee. You should be doing something.
Well,
Eric, can I pick up on that?
You mentioned my name.
Mr. Zeldin, you got 30 seconds.
Yeah, so President Trump was doing an outstanding job securing our southern border, and we should have finished construction of the border wall. We should have been ramping up interior enforcement. We should be supporting our ICE and our Customs and Border Patrol rather than throwing them under the bus as the Biden administration's been doing. I've been advocating for cutting off the Biden administration travel agency where they're providing the flights, they're giving phones and other goodies. We shouldn't be rewarding and incentivizing illegal entry, and it's not just people coming across, it's fentanyl and it's killing our kids. So we have to see Congress take action once the House flips this November.
Go ahead.
Eric, can I just get 30 seconds on the Medicaid?
Let me get Mr. Astorino.
You're on Foreign Affairs. You're supposed to be making sure these flights aren't coming from the southern border into our own neighborhoods. They're going into Long Island where you live. They're going into Westchester and the Hudson Valley and throughout the state. And nobody gets any answers from our own government, including the federal government. There's been no oversight on this whatsoever by you. I'm the only one sounding the alarm on this. It is a huge public safety issue, public health issue, and the public has a right to know. We're paying the bills, and we get a big middle finger from our own governor as well as the president, and no answers from anybody in Congress.
So Mr. Astorino likes to make believe like he's the only person who's talking about illegal immigration, and that's just not the reality.
No, in New York, what's happening?
But that's not true. So what we need for this November, November 8th, we have an opportunity to flip the House of Representatives. One of the ways that we do it is that the former chief of police right here in Rochester, Laurent Singletary, is going to get elected to the House of Representatives. We need to do our part to take the gavels out of the hands of Pelosi and Schiff and Nadler and Waters. It's about a battle for the heart and soul of our country and our state right now, and one of the ways that we're going to accomplish this, to have more oversight, to be able to control the agenda, and to control Congress and hold the Biden administration accountable, is electing more people like Laurent Singletary to Congress.
Okay.
So, Eric, just 30 seconds on the actual question on Medicaid. All right, so this is
let's do 15 because I got more questions.
It's hugely fundamental. It's $91 billion, the most expensive program in the country, and the lowest quality. It's a lose-lose. That's exactly what I focus on. We have to make sure it delivers quality care at a much lower cost. Massachusetts does it for 1/3 less and is #1 in the country. That is what we can do, and just on that alone, we can save billions of dollars and deliver better quality health care for people.
All right, let's do this. I want to do this. I want to ask this question. I'm prepping my control room because it's not necessarily in the right order, but I love this question. I want to get to this. You've all been openly critical of Soros-supported DAs, such as Alvin Bragg. You've all mentioned it so far, for being soft on crime. Noteworthy, all four of you have said that you would use the governor's power to remove Bragg if he did not start prosecuting crime more aggressively. Mr. Wilson, let's start with you. You contributed to Mr. Bragg's campaign. How do you justify that support with your position. Start with you, sir.
Yeah, it's very simple. It has nothing to do with, I didn't ever support his positions. We went to college together. 2 years ago, one of our college classmates asked me to make a contribution to him. He had been a moderate in college. His positions weren't public. I gave him $1,000. That was it. We had never supported his positions. His first memo came out a year later, and as soon as I was asked about it, I said that is incredibly disappointing. That is not the guy I knew, and I would fire him using the powers under Article 13. I've been very public about this. I made a mistake. I'm going to acknowledge my mistakes, and if I'd known 2 years ago when he was not public, I would never have given him $1.
Okay, Mr. Giuliani, you have a minute.
Yeah, well, I was the first candidate to come out there and actually hold a press conference calling, to actually have recall on there. You can stop being a child, Lee. The first candidate to actually come on out there and do that. And to be honest, look, the governor needs to invoke Article 8, Section 13B of the New York State Constitution. The fact that Kathy Hochul is playing to her Democratic base instead of actually protecting the welfare in each and every other New Yorker tells you everything that you need to know about Democrats in Albany right now. That's why I have said that I will fire any single district attorney, like Alvin Bragg, like the DA in Brooklyn as well, and any other one that chooses not to prosecute resisting arrest and armed robbery. As I said right at the top of this, of all the issues that are facing New Yorkers, and there are many of them, crime is probably the top issue when we look at our cities, and we're standing right here in Rochester right now. We need to make sure we send a very clear message that we are going to allow stop, question, and frisk again, that we are going to allow broken windows policing, and that we are going to make sure we end this war on our police, Eric.
Mr. Zeldin, I'm going to give you, Congressman, I'm going to give you a minute 15 to respond, and then your minute.
Well, so I held the press conference with Councilman Joe Borelli, Councilwoman Joanne Areola, Councilwoman Ina Vernikov in front of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office. That took place. That was the first press conference that actually took place in this issue. Just like I was the first candidate to call for reinstating the death penalty and all sorts of other initiatives that get followed by others. And I believe that the Buffalo shooter deserves the death penalty and that we should bring it back here in this state. Alvin Bragg has to go. On day one, I get sworn in. The first thing I'm going to do is fire Alvin Bragg. You know what the second thing I'm going to do? All COVID mandates still in place. And you know what the third thing I'm going to do? I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor for Andrew Cuomo's deadly nursing home order and cover-up. And one of the reasons why Kathy Hochul should be fired is because she was either complicit or out to lunch on every single scandal, whether it was the COVID testing scandal, it was the deadly nursing home order and cover-up that followed. It was the $5.1 million self-congratulatory book deal using taxpayer-funded staff to help write it. We're picking Brian Benjamin, who's been making a career running from the law, and that's why I chose Allison Esposito as our state's next lieutenant governor. She's made a career of enforcing the law.
I'll get to Mr. Astorino 1 second. You have 15 seconds, Mr. Giuliani.
Yeah, well, look, I think this is just typical of Lee, who honestly is a flip-flopper. This is a guy who a couple of years ago said that President Trump made racist statements and then lied to you last night, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, he's going to flip and flop. You were with Trump before you were against him. You're against him before that. I can't even tell. You can't even get it straight.
15,
typical Albany
15, Mr. Zeldin.
Sorry to say.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that's just not true. And if you go back and you look at the clip that my opponent put out from a CNN interview, it actually selectively edited what I had stated, and what I was doing in that interview was that I said that President Trump was not a racist, and the CNN hosts kept trying to get me to admit to it, and I said he's not a racist, and that's unfortunate.
You said
but as far as
your definition that he is racist in terms of the comments that he made.
You selectively edited the video.
You said,
on
no, I
purpose
didn't. You can
because
go
you're
on.
worse
It's
than
on
CNN.
YouTube, Lee.
All right.
And the truth is,
all right.
you just lied to New Yorkers.
All right.
I didn't selectively edit it.
We have a lot more. We have a lot more. We have
statements were
I
racist.
need
You
to
agreed with CNN.
Very quickly.
I mean, listen, for somebody whose claim to fame was that Chris Farley made fun of him on Saturday Night Live for being an obnoxious kid, who ends up becoming more obnoxious and get kicked off the Duke golf team. And then you basically get the position as the Chick-fil-A runner at the White House, outranked by the White House Easter egg
right now.
So listen, the reality is, Andrew,
gentlemen,
reality.
You're sometimes Trump.
Gentlemen,
the reality.
Gentlemen, I love the heat. I love the heat.
You should get a job, and you should
Congressman.
get experience before you're running for
Sorry,
governor.
Andrew, stop. Mr. Astorino, the question to you, sir, what will you do about Mr. Bragg and DAs similar to Mr. Bragg?
Well, fire them immediately. But look, I think Andrew was right. You know, what we've seen with Lee over the years, Lee gets very defensive, and I would be too, because he has to
Defender of
defend
truth.
his record.
That's different.
So
Defender
here's a
of
guy who had to make decisions in Albany, and he went with the establishment, the status quo. I am running to get rid of the radicals and the rhinos in New York. And I will tell you this. Unfortunately, Lee made the list. You know what list it is? All these different organizations that rate Republicans in the House of Representatives as liberal or conservative. Lee made the list. He is in the one of the top liberal Republicans in the House of Representatives. Now, that's on his voting record. If you don't think it's true, go right now to @Rob Astorino on Twitter, and you'll go right to the rankings. He is ranked more liberal than Liz Cheney and Adam
Let me give
Kinzinger.
Congressman a chance to respond, then we will move on. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I guess it's pretty clear for the listeners at home. You'll know who's in first place and who's the front runner in this race. As far as my record, I've now won 7 consecutive races in purple suburban districts. I took out 2 incumbent Democrats along the way. We took out an incumbent in 2010 who was in the state Senate, and with that, we flipped control of the state Senate. I took out a 6-term, 12-year incumbent. My opponent here, Rob Astorino, has now lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices. His last race for state Senate in 2020, he lost his own county of Westchester.
I hate doing this, guys.
Just
I got to
New
break
Yorkers,
this
Lee.
up
That's all
for
we
just a
ask.
minute. Hold on, folks. We have a lot more. We have to take a break from the action. More from these candidates. It's heating up. It's heating up. Stick around. We'll be right back.
My name is John Winnig. I'm 58 years old. I'm a retired veteran. I did do a tour in Iraq, 2007, 2008, the U.S. Army. I was at the World Trade Center disaster. I responded to that in 9/11. From all the exposures that we had, I became really, really sick, really ill. I was always not up to par. Every day was getting harder to function. My mission now is quality of life. And I tried different supplements, I tried different things, and finally, about a year ago, I started taking Balance of Nature, and I feel that the Balance of Nature has helped me out in finding the quality of life because I feel a lot better, and I feel good. And I'm gonna continue to take it till the cows come home.
Start your journey to better health by going to balanceofnature.com, and don't forget to use discount code Newsmax.
One of my favorite supplements is Cunol Turmeric. Turmeric helps with healthy joints and inflammation support. Unlike regular turmeric supplements, Cunol's superior absorption helps me get the full benefits of turmeric. The brand I trust is Cunol.
Stylish, high quality, revolutionary. Cab Over America wireless cab marker lights. Installed with no wires and no holes. Eliminate water leaks, electrical corrosion, and headliner damage with Cab Over America wireless running lights. Cab Over America wireless solar-powered cab clearance lights fit all trucks and SUVs. With easy installation, they're ready to go. Save time, money, and headaches with Cab Over America wireless cab marker lights.
Closed captioning brought to you by Magnalife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
Suffering from burning, tingling, or stabbing pain in your feet? Get relief with Magnalife Pain Relieving Foot Cream and get living.
Also available as a 360-degree spray.
All right, we're coming back now. This New York gubernatorial debate, GOP, is heating up, folks. It's getting crazy in here. You're going to want to see this. We got about 20 more minutes for these guys to make their case. All right, the next set of questions are for individual candidates. Come on, guys, come on. Shh, okay. Let's hear from the candidates. Please. The answers will be 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Now, Mr. Wilson, you have been endorsed by Unity New York, which favors open primaries. In such a scenario, Democrats could choose who's on the Republican ballot and vice versa. What do you say to Republicans sitting in the auditorium and watching on television right now who want a candidate who represents their values and not the values of Democrats who could vote in a Republican primary, especially in a state like this?
Well, that's just totally incorrect, Eric. That is not what a definition of open primary is at all. So let's be clear about the facts, number one. Secondly, every candidate in this stage interviewed for and competed for the Unite New York endorsement, and I got it. Why did I get it? because I'm the one most focused on government transparency and making reform and ethics reform and driving that home in a broken Albany. Because I'm not a politician, I'm not beholden to anybody, I cannot be bought, and I will fix Albany and take it away from the career politicians and make it work for the people of the state. Now, what I said was I think independents should have a voice because we have a lot of independents, and that is what I talked about, not anything about Democrats voting in a Republican primary.
Got it. Mr. Giuliani, on your website, most of your campaign materials say Giuliani for governor. One word is missing. Andrew. Are you capitalizing on your father's name instead of putting yourself forward is the question.
Well, I'm very proud of my name. And people would say, well, with a famous last name, it's easy to run in politics. I would tell you with a name like Andrew, it's very difficult to be the leading candidate for governor in a Republican primary. Look, I'm proud of the 4 years that I worked for President Donald J. Trump in the White House. I'm the only person on this stage that always supported President Donald J. Trump and didn't call him other kinds of names. And I am very, very proud of, I think, New York's greatest crime fighter, Rudolph W. Giuliani.
All right. Congressman Zeldin, in flyers sent out, Mr. Wilson has you and Andrew Cuomo pictured as pilots, and he calls you Cuomo's wingman because you voted for his budgets, he says. How do you defend voting for Governor Cuomo's budget, sir?
So what happens is that the governor proposes a budget, and then the Senate passes their own one-house budget, and then you try to reach a three-way agreement. So the 4 years I was there, instead of passing Cuomo's budget, the state Senate passed our own budget with a self-imposed 2% spending cap, and then we reached an agreement. And as I pointed out last week, this was fact-checked. Someone did the research, and they pointed out that out of 63 state senators, there were only 2 state senators who voted against Andrew Cuomo more than I did. But actually, at the beginning of 2011, Harry Wilson was writing an op-ed in Daily News calling on us to support Andrew Cuomo's agenda.
That is not true.
It's 100% true.
It is not true.
That's all you have. You just say it's not true.
First of all, everything Lee Zeldin said is politician talk where I rolled over and gave Andrew Cuomo the keys to the kingdom. That's exactly what happened.
True.
Fiscal conservatives like Kieran Lawler have been voting against the budget for years, and Governor Pataki, when he was a state senator before he ran for governor, voted against the Mario Cuomo budgets. True fiscal conservatives vote their principles, not just roll over because they're told by the Senate leadership.
Did not
I
pass
would respect
the 4 years
Mr.
I was there,
Zeldin
did
more
not pass
if he
his budget.
honestly said, hey, I screwed up. I was a young state senator. I was trying to get a job in Congress.
So you want me to lie?
I voted with the party.
You want me to lie?
No, because you did screw up. That's not a lie. It's
No,
totally
the state
true.
Senate didn't pass the budget.
True. What do you mean didn't pass the budget? No one up here believes that.
The Republican Senate did not pass Cuomo's budget.
High school civics believes anything you're saying. That's the truth.
It's just, I mean, it's just not true. You could go back and look at it. Just like you tried to fact check Eric Bolling just now, who asked you a question about open primaries. You say, no, that doesn't mean that people who aren't Republicans can vote in primaries.
It absolutely doesn't mean that.
Actually, Eric did his research before he asked the question. Open primaries are exactly that.
That is
there
not
are
what it means,
Republicans
Lee.
who are in the audience who don't want non-Republicans to vote in the primary. But this is the first thing you do. Is that you instantly say that what's true is false. What I
said in the 2011 op-ed.
Chevy is Ford. Just be honest with Republican voters.
We are being honest. You're the only one who's not. There are 3 people being honest on the stage.
Mr. Wilson, go ahead. You have the stage.
There are 3 people being honest on the stage, and it's consistent. Rob, Andrew, and me. And Lee has consistently lied and deflected. Consistently. In that op-ed, which we tweeted out, I specifically, Lee, I want to finish, Lee, because you just keep talking. You never do anything, but you keep talking. In 2011, in that op-ed, the Daily News, I said the Senate Republicans need to show some backstory and actually push back on Andrew Cuomo.
Snake oil salesman.
Congressman, please let him finish.
See, you know why he does that? Because he can't handle the truth.
No, I can. The problem is that you can't speak the truth.
In 2011,
somebody says something that's true,
allow the gentleman, we got to move on.
Who was betrayed by Chris Barr say, let's grow up, guys.
Mr.
Come on,
Astorino,
let's grow up in this.
I'm going to finish my point.
Guys, I can't.
No, I'm going to finish my point.
Please,
My op-ed is on my Twitter feed.
Mr. Wilson, please.
It lays it out very
It's Mr.
clearly.
Astorino's turn. You enter this primary, having lost the governor's race in 2014, sir, your own re-election as Westchester County Executive and a state Senate seat 2 years ago. Why? Explain to this public right now in this auditorium and the voters watching, why would Republican voters have confidence that you can beat a Democrat in this state?
No question. Look, Lee talks about Suffolk County. I'm the only one on this stage undefeated in Suffolk County. I won in 2014.
I am too.
Lee lost. Oh, congratulations. That's you too. Lee lost a congressional race by 17 points. Suffolk County is a deep red county. It went for Trump twice. Westchester County is 3-1 Democrat. Trump lost by 37 points, yet I outpaced him by 25. So I can win in the key suburbs because I can attract Democrats and independents.
Okay.
But here's a key thing to think about.
Quick,
I think
quick,
our party needs to grow. We should have liberal Republicans like Lee Zeldin in it as well.
Okay.
But we also, we got to be a Big Ten.
All right.
And think of this. Lee Zeldin voted with Cuomo 90% of the time when he was in the state Senate. He voted with Trump.
Why don't you just say 110%?
He voted with Trump
I need to get Mr. Zeldin
89% of the time.
for final rebuttal
that
on
should
this
tell you
question.
where he is.
Sir.
Well, I've now won 7 consecutive races. Rob Astorino's lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices. His last race in 2020 was for state Senate. My first win in that 2010 race, by the way, there were more Democrats than Republicans. It was a Democrat incumbent.
3-1.
He won by 16 points, and that person between him and his father were there for 30 years. I got reelected in that state Senate district, in a district that has more Democrats than Republicans. And
Eric.
on this stage, you just have people who keep losing, and they say, well, I lost. It was really close in this race, and it was really close when I lost in this race, and it was really close when I lost in this race. People out who are paying attention are scared for the future of this state. They're hitting their breaking point. They want to back a winner, and they will when they vote for me next Tuesday. And they will win in November. We fire Kathy Hochul.
Mr. Zeldin, Mr. Astorino, please, final.
Here's the difference between us. In 2014, I ran against Cuomo because I took him on. I knew the corrupt thug that he is and was. And
I endorsed you in that race.
Folks. Let me speak.
I endorsed
Let
you
me
in that
speak,
race.
Lee. It's a very liberal
Well,
thing to do. Let me speak.
Maybe you shouldn't mention that.
I took him on.
Just mention that I endorsed you in that race.
I took Andrew Cuomo on in 2014, and we got the closest any Republican has for governor. But you know what?
You still
Look
forgot
this
to
up,
mention the
folks.
part
I'm
that I
tweeting this
endorsed you.
tonight right now at Rob Astorino. Look this up. There was a secret PAC. This is the swampiest of swamp things. The Senate Republicans that Lee was part of.
I endorsed
They
you.
had a secret
We did
PAC.
rallies together.
Look
All
at
right.
the New York
I
Post.
I have to move on.
Come on,
Guys,
Look at the New York Post.
I love the
carried your
enthusiasm.
literature.
The Senate
Gentlemen,
Republicans had a
phone
deal with
calls on
Cuomo.
Lee, grow
up.
They would
Come
not
on, let's
support
move
me,
on. Rob,
and Cuomo wouldn't go
gentlemen,
after him. I
gentlemen.
knew he was corrupt then.
Guys.
Lee was an enabler of Cuomo
All right,
and voted for all of his budgets.
Gas is at $5 a gallon. We have climbed through the roof. Let's talk about it.
All right, we're moving on. We're just going to move on. This is for all of you. Over the past 2 years, COVID has caused strains in public schools. New Yorkers have seen powerful teachers' unions that set curricula contrary to parents' values that resisted reopening schools. As governor, how would you improve the public school system, knowing that you'll get resistance from the very, very powerful teachers' unions? And we'll start with you, Mr. Astorino.
Well, I'm a very big proponent of charter schools. We should have no caps in New York, and we do, and that means too many low-income students are waiting, and the teachers' unions are saying no. We've got 6% less public education students in New York right now. They're fleeing, and no child should be left out of the school that they want to go to, so I will absolutely support that. We also need to have something like the Education Investment Tax Credit, which will help our religious schools, our parochial schools, our private schools. Parents should have a choice. You know, what we saw in this pandemic, unfortunately, where the good schools still were good, they were working at home, but our bad schools were exposed, and the junk that they are teaching in schools. The other day, I had a press conference, it's on my website or social media, the nonsense, not just the CRT, but the sex and the sex ed and the talks. If this were a guy showing up in a van at a playground talking like this, they'd call 911. But our teachers can talk to these kids like that. This stuff has to end, and this is why people are losing faith in our public education system here in New York.
Congressman Zeldin.
Competition is good. We should get rid of the cap on charter schools. We should have tax credits for school choice, educational savings accounts. We should set up our kids for success in the classroom. Not everyone's made to go to college, and they should see that the purpose, the diploma, you get a good paying job. So get your hands on the equipment, the experience, you network with trades, and there's a good paying job waiting for you the next day. We should be all opposing the substantial equivalency move that's going on right now up in Albany, and stick up for the yeshiva schools and all of the private parochial schools right now that are being targeted up in Albany. It is important that we are empowering parents who are choosing to homeschool their kids. We should oppose any COVID vaccine mandates at all on any of our, not just grade school students, but higher ed as well. We shouldn't have our toddlers in masks. We should never go back to remote learning. That is no substitute at all for full-time in-person learning. We have an opportunity to improve education, but it's not going to happen with Kathy Hochul. It's not going to happen with one-party Democrat rule. And this message for all New Yorkers, in order to save our state on behalf of our kids, We have to fire Kathy Hochul in November.
All right, Mr. Giuliani.
Well, I'm going to take this answer in a little different direction. I agree certainly with what Mr. Astorino and Lee said on that, but I would look specifically at the parental rights and education bill that was signed in Florida and make sure we duplicate that here in New York. When I think about what's been taught to our kids, and we answered this yesterday, look, I think our kids need to learn a true history of America, the good, the bad, and the incredible, ladies and gentlemen. We live in the greatest country in the history of mankind. When I ended up going to the hospital to pick up my baby Grace, I had on her birth certificate the option to fill out male, female, or other. There are two genders here, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that our kids are learning that there are more is absurd. And of course I agree with tax credits and making sure that parents actually can utilize the free market and those property tax dollars in their hands so they can take it to a parochial school like I went to or yeshiva school. Of course I believe in actually making sure we raise the cap in charter schools. We absolutely do need more competition education, and we need to make sure that our parents, Eric, yes, our parents are the primary stakeholders in our kids' education.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. So public education is one of my most important issues. When I was a little kid in working class Greek immigrant family growing up in Johnstown, I showed up on my first day at nursery school, didn't speak a word of English. I was able to be the first in my family to go to college because of the great teachers and coaches I had in the Johnstown public school system. And I think every kid in New York deserves that same opportunity. How do we do it? First, we need more competition. I'm all for eliminating the charter school cap and vouchers to create more competition. Second, we need more focus on local control. Parents, I'm a father of 4 daughters. Parents have the greatest insights and ownership of the kids' education, and that's what should be driving all of our changes at the local level. And third, and the biggest issue that we don't talk about because it's hard, but we have to deal with hard issues, is the curricular reboot we need to do, because we just devastated a generation of kids who had to learn remotely for the last 2 years. I saw it in my own family. Right. I saw it in my own community. And we need to focus on a reboot that will bring them back up to where they should have been over the next 3 to 5 years and drive policy changes so we don't lose a generation.
Okay, well, these last couple of questions are going to go fairly quickly. I'm going to go right to it. Important questions. I love this question. How would you describe yourself politically on a scale from Pence to Trump? Mr. Wilson.
I don't know how to answer that. I'm a limited government conservative in all respects.
Okay, all right, well, there you go. Mr. Giuliani.
Giuliani. Trump and Giuliani.
Okay. Congressman Zeldin.
No matter what the two names are that you mentioned, it's important to always be my own man.
Okay. Mr. Astorino.
I'm an Astorino conservative. I've proven that. But I will say this. I was on CNN defending Donald Trump for 2.5 years in the heat of battle against the Cuomos and the Don Lemons of the world, and they couldn't beat me 4-on-1 on those panels.
And this question. If you don't win the Republican primary, will you endorse the winner? And again, we'll start with you, Mr. Wilson.
I've publicly said yes many times.
Mr. Giuliani?
I believe we're in position to win this thing on June 28th, but if not, and the people choose someone else, I will always back what the people say.
Mr. Astorino?
I certainly will. Lee tried to knock all 3 of us off the ballot, so we had no challenge. But we're here, and whoever wins, and I believe it will be me, but whoever wins, we will speak with one voice and defeat Kathy Hochul and the radicals in New York.
Congressman?
The ease that they just keep lying is just incredible. The reinvention of history as to what happened.
You didn't try to knock us off the ballot.
Really insane.
Let's hear it.
You didn't try to knock us off the ballot.
I'm also endorsed by the Conservative Party.
Answer the question, Lee. Answer the question.
No, I'm saying it's false. And I'm endorsed by the Conservative Party. I am also not going to lose this primary next Tuesday because everybody is focused on winning as the only option. Losing is not an option, but it is important for all of us to be one voice this time next week. It is a hard-fought primary. There are passions inside of this room and outside of the state.
Will you support the winner?
I'm going to be supporting the primary winner next Tuesday.
So the answer is no.
Even if it's not you.
You just learned a lot about him. The answer is no.
Listen, I don't think about losing. I refuse to
It's
lose.
a simple yes/no question, Lee.
Simple
I'm
yes
going
or
to
no.
be supporting the winner of the primary next Tuesday. I'm telling
Just
you,
like you
I
could not say
guarantee
yes
you
or
that
no
I
to
will
the
be-
fact that you had
I will
called
be in
President
full
Trump
support.
past state
all right,
racist.
all right.
You
Wait,
can't
all right.
answer
Republicans
this.
of New
Wait,
York,
gentlemen,
answer
gentlemen,
this.
The only reason
Guys,
Lee Zeldin
guys,
is up here is
listen,
because
Eric,
picked by
Sam,
primary
he would
and
not
center.
say yes or
you
no.
guys,
Simple fact.
guys,
To the fact
I'm a
that
viewer
President
right
Trump-
now.
Listen, it's not
I
easy
heard-
to be in
said that.
second, third, and fourth
Lee,
place. I get it.
Congressman,
You would
I
know,
heard
Lee.
him
You would know,
say.
wouldn't you?
I heard him say he would support the winner of the primary.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, I would take that as a viewer as
Okay, good.
whoever wins. Okay, let's leave it right there. It's time for closing statements now. Remarks. The order was determined by a random draw prior to the debate. And now, first up, Mr. Giuliani.
Well, Eric, thank you very much to Newsmax. Again, it's wonderful to be in this room with you. When I think about all the challenges that are facing our state, we need somebody, not that just went to Albany and has gone along to get along, not that calls our former president racist in terms of what he's done, but somebody who's going to come out every single day and fight for New Yorkers. Fight for New Yorkers because we need to make sure we curb this out-migration. We can be the safest large state in the country again, ladies and gentlemen. We can be an economic leader. You know, when I think of Rochester, when I think of New York, I think about the Erie Canal connecting the rest of the world to the United States of America. Not through DeSantis' Florida, but right here through New York. That's what we can do again, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on June 28th.
Mr. Wilson.
This election is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take back and fix our state. That is why I've turned my life upside down and come in and do it, just like I've done in company after company for 30 years. That is the skill set we need to make sure Albany starts working for us. To do that, we need someone who can win statewide, and we need someone who can actually fix this broken state. I'm the only one up here who spent 30 years doing it. And then in terms of winning, I ran for office once before. I was a Republican and conservative nominee for state controller in 2010. I'm the only person who's come close to winning statewide in the last 20 years. Why? Because I was able to convince people that even though they didn't disagree with me, and I ran the most fiscally conservative platform in my lifetime, because they believed that that would make a difference for their family. And that is exactly what we need in the state. We need someone to bring hope back, to make people to be able to believe in a better place to live and work. And that's what we'll accomplish through our turnaround plan and fundamentally remake the state for all 20 million New Yorkers.
Mr. Astorino.
New York is in crisis right now. We're chaotic. It's dangerous, our streets. People can't afford to live in New York. And I've been through this when I ran in 2009 in deep blue Westchester and got elected and then reelected by overwhelming numbers. And I was the fiscal conservative and the staunch conservative that it needed. I cut taxes, I held the line on spending, and I made sure that the radicalism of the Democrats were put down. And so I've had to go up against Democrats and rhinos. And I will tell you this, people right now are concerned about whether they can afford to fill up their cars or whether or not they can go shopping or putting off their vacation this year. Help is on the way, folks. I'm going to win this race. I'm going to turn around New York like I turned around Westchester County. And I'll tell you, as I've said across this state, this is going to be the revenge of the normal people. We are tired of the crazies and the radicals that are ruining our state and our country. So vote for me, and I will put an end to this and bring normalcy back to New York.
Congressman Zeldin.
I'm honored to be endorsed by the New York State Conservative Party, by the NRA, by the New York State Right to Life, by Mark Levin and Rick Grinnell and Jim Jordan. Anyone who's at home right now, you're frustrated, you're hitting your breaking point right now, you're seeing Albany attacking your freedom, you're seeing it attack your safety, the quality of your kids' education, your wallets. Albany right now puts their hand in your wallet and they give it back to you and they expect a thank you. This is our opportunity to save our state. We have to fire Kathy Hochul in November. I'm planning on continuing this winning streak, not just next Tuesday, but this November as well. But this is important for all of us everywhere, taking nothing for granted. If you want to boost upstate manufacturing, if you want to tackle broadband, you want to fight for our farmers, everything that's a priority for all of us that binds us to make our streets safer, to make life in New York more affordable so you could stay here, it's important for all of us everywhere, all in. Losing this race for all of us is not an option.
All right. There you have it, folks. There you have it. This concludes our Newsmax debate. Thank you to the candidates for their time. A huge thank you to the team here at the Kodak Center, and thank you to our audience here in the audience here and also at home. Keep it right here on Newsmax for more on the debate and all your political coverage leading up to the very crucial midterm elections. I'm Eric Bolling. Good night, everybody.